Assalamu alaikum and very good evening to all of you, my dear subscribers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. This video is dedicated to the explanation of the types of games used in game theory. There may be a number of different games that we will study in the game theory, and these types of game theory have different methods of analysis in different cases. It is therefore useful to classify games according to certain important characteristics. Uh, some games are of cooperative nature, while other games are of non-cooperative nature. In cooperative games, the player can communicate with each other and they may collude. They can also enter into third-party enforceable binding contracts. Much of this type of activity is expressly prohibited by law in developed countries, so most of the games that are of interest in economic situations are of the non-cooperative type. This type of game involves forming self-enforcing reliance relationships that determine an equilibrium situation. The second type of games is that of two-player and multiplayer games. A version of the prisoner's dilemma situation is a two-player game. However, such games are capable of being extended to include more than two parties, so that may be extended to involve multiplayers in the game. This tends to increase the likelihood of defection, particularly in the one-off situation. Such situations is sometimes referred to as the tragedy of the commons. The reasoning is that with more players, it is important to defect because before others do. Only if the defections are easily detected and punished will then be prevented. It is also relevant in international relations. There are different types of property rights regime. We may have open access resources. We may have commons. We may have privately owned resources, and there may be state-owned resources. In case of commons, there is this problem, the tragedy of the commons, where there is overexploitation of resources. So, for example, the depletion of fish stocks in the North Sea due to overfishing and the resulting conflicts are an example of the tragedy of the commons. Property right theory is obviously relevant in this area. With multiplayer games, there is also the opportunity for some of the players to form coalitions against others and try to impose strategies that would otherwise be unsustainable. The third types of games are zero-sum game and non-zero-sum games. We have already discussed zero-sum game in case of two players, and zero-sum games mean when the sum of the payoffs is equal to zero. With zero-sum games, the gain of one player is automatically the loss of another player. This can also apply, for example, in derivatives markets where certain transactions occur between two speculators. However, most business situations involve non-zero-sum games, as can be seen in the Coke-Pepsi advertising situation. The combined profit of the two firms varies according to the strategies that both players would like to follow. Then there we may have games that involve perfect information and those with imperfect information. In the various versions of the prisoner dilemma game case that we discussed earlier, it was assumed that all the players knew for certain what all the payoffs were for each of the strategies. In practice, this is often not the case, and this can also affect strategy. In some cases, a player may be certain regarding their own payoffs. In some cases, they may know their own payoffs, but they may be uncertain regarding the payoffs of the other players. For example, an insurance company may not know all the relevant details about the person applying for insurance. That is a situation which leads to adverse selection. Similarly, bidders at an auction may not know the valuation that other parties place on the auctioned item. And games with imperfect information are unsurprisingly more difficult to analyze as compared to games with perfect information. Then games may be static or dynamic. Static games involve simultaneous moves. The prisoner dilemma game is a simultaneous game, meaning that the players make their own moves simultaneously without knowing the move of the other player. In terms of analysis, the moves do not have to be simultaneous in chronological terms as long as each player is ignorant of the moves of the other players. Many business scenarios involve dynamic games, and these involve sequential moves where one player moves first and the other player moves afterward, knowing the move of the first player. Investing in building a new plant is an example of this situation. The order of play can make a big difference to the outcome in such situations. There are certain games in which there are discrete strategies, and then there are games that have continuous strategies. Discrete strategies involve situations where each action can be chosen from a limited number of alternatives. In the prisoner dilemma game, there are only two choices for each player, to confess or not confess. Thus, this is a discrete strategy situation. In contrast, a firm in oligopoly may have a virtually limitless number of prices that it can charge. This is an example of a continuous strategy situation. As a result, the analytical approach is somewhat different and difficult, as one may see the analysis of oligopoly. One-off and repetitive games. This is another type of games. The distinction between these two types of situation has already been explained with the help of the various versions of the prisoner's dilemma case. Most short-run decision scenarios in business, such as pricing and advertising, are of a repetitive nature, in that there is a continuous interaction between competitors who can change their decision variables at regular intervals. Some of these games may involve a finite number of plays, where an end of the game can be foreseen, while others may seem infinite. Long-term decisions, such as investment decision, may resemble the one-off situation, although the situation may be repeated in the future. However, the time interval between decisions may be several years, and the next decision scenario may involve quite different payoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, these are various types of games that are used and discussed in game theory. I hope this was useful and informative for you. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, kindly subscribe the channel, and don't forget to click on the bell icon so that you can get notification about my other videos that will be uploaded for you shortly. Thanks for watching this video. Kindly share its various videos of this channel in various WhatsApp groups, and you may share these videos and this channel with your students, with your colleagues, with your friends, so that